When you come to Kvarner, treat yourself to an experience you will remember. Enjoy the luxurious ambience. Experience superior service. Indulge in endless pleasures. The pearl of the tourism offer in the pearl of the Adriatic. Liburnia, Hotels and Villas.
Welcome along then to the closer of a regular season in EuroNASCAR Pro. After Zolder, only one round and one destination remains, and that is, of course, our double points weekend in Croatia at Grobnik. But 18 laps of the Circuit Zolder, a formidable venue, await our drivers between then and now. 75 kilometers, 18 laps of racing, and a very compelling race that we had yesterday as well. It was the race, frankly, that Gianmarco Ercole sorely needed yesterday. He was the race winner. He's had a mixed bag of fortune so far in 2022, but thankfully it was a good performance from him, and he will be joined at the sharp end of the order by some very competitive drivers. Of course, coming into this weekend, we didn't think that Alan Day would be a factor at all. That's since changed, and it is Alan Day in the car, but not the car we'd expect. He's in the number 40, not the number 24 this weekend. He is in Speedhouse's colours on a one-off basis. He was on a five-event deal that has, however, now expanded to a one-off appearance with Speedhouse. He'll be back with Car Sport next month, or later this month, I should say, in Croatia. But our championship leader is here at Zolder last minute, which means his drop scores won't be quite as poor as we were expecting them to be. Could be an advantage for him then in the championship. You see there is a huge scrum of people, fans and invited guests here. And we also have Andre Vigold down there somewhere in the scrum. In fact, no, he's vacated the pit lane. Wise man, Andre.
Thank you so much, Adam. I'm here with the most experienced lady we have in EuroNASCAR racing, Ariana Cazzoli. How's it going?
It's fine. It's fine to be back here in Zolder. There's a lot of people today. It's a sunny day. We had two great races, and this is fun for everybody. Yesterday, a little bit of safety car, but today we did all the race clean, so it was fun, really.
How are you enjoying the NASCAR GP Belgium here at Circuit Zolder, such a traditional track?
I think it's one of the best one. I love it. It's an historical piece of motorsport, and you can feel it everywhere here. The feeling is great. Always coming back here is something special.
Thank you so much. Grazie mille. Now enjoy the grid walk.
Thank you. I wait you all in the grid.
Thanks.
Excellent there to hear from some of our drivers from EN2, EuroNASCAR 2. You see there one of the more experienced drivers on the EuroNASCAR Pro Grid. That is Mark Goossens. I'm talking experience in a general sense rather than within EuroNASCAR. Mark Goossens has, of course, been a part of the racing scene for many decades, and he will be starting alongside Gianmarco Ercole on the front row of the grid. But for now, back down to Andre.
I'm here now with Ulysse Delson, our 2018 EuroNASCAR 2 champion. How do you like this event so far?
This is a great event, and Zolder, it's a very good place for EuroNASCAR. And I was big champion 4 years ago, and I've got good memories and bad memories like another driver. And it's a great event.
All right, then enjoy. Merci beaucoup, and see you next time.
Thank you very much.
As Ulysse Delson then, as mentioned, their 2018 EuroNASCAR 2 champion. Doesn't that feel like a long time ago now? We saw him racing earlier on, of course, in the EuroNASCAR 2 second race. Alberto Nasca leads their championship going into the season finale, but Liam Hasemans did a spectacular job of closing in that deficit. Hazeman's, incidentally, will also be racing here in the EuroNASCAR Pro category, and he will be starting from 8th on the grid. The young Dutchman, who is a hot prospect here in the paddock. He's not in the top 10 of the championship, though. It is Alan Day on top at the moment in the championship standings, but look how close Alexander Graf is after round 9 of the championship. Giorgio Maggi and Nicola Rocca also very much still in it as well. Martin Dubeck, 34, back last year's Euro NASCAR 2 champion, has been formidable in pro this year. Gianmarco Ercoli, with yesterday's win, put himself right back into mathematical contention when we go to double points in Croatia. And if he can get more points over Alan Day today, then that will only aid him in his quest to try and salvage a championship after a season that has been full of misfortunes. No misfortunes for us, though, because we've got some very diligent work going on down in the pit lane. Yet more interviews from Andre.
I'm here now with Roy Hendricks, the team manager of Hendricks Motorsport. Another very successful weekend for you guys with Liam Hazeman's 2 race wins, perfect sweep. You must be happy.
Yes, we are. And first time in Zolder, we are really successful finally. Normally here it is a little bit difficult for us, but Liam did well.
You're leading also the team championship. You're one of the top teams in EuroNASCAR. How do you like this event? And are you considered as a Dutch guy, the Belgium NASCAR Grand Prix as your home race? Because we have no race in the Netherlands at the moment.
It is the closest to home, so yes, we sort of consider it the home race. So yes.
Then good luck in the next race and have fun.
Thank you.
He must be excited about the young talent that he is running in his number 50 car this year. Hendricks Motorsport doing a great job with Liam in particular. They also, of course, run Martin Dubeck in the 7 car. It's a very strong lineup for Hendricks Motorsport. Just touching on Alan Day again, fastest laps from race 1 yesterday determined the grid for race 2, and it really hasn't fallen in favour of Alan Day. He, in the number 40 car, the unfamiliar Speedhouse machine, will be starting from 13th on the grid. His regular steed, the number 24, the PK Car Sport entry, is 4th on the grid, albeit in the hands of the returning Anthony Kumpen, the local legend and the home circuit hero, as it were, this weekend. Anthony Kumpen, who had some issues with the car yesterday, I'm sure he'll be looking to try and get onto the podium in today's race from 4th on the grid. We're a little under 25 minutes away from the beginning of this 18-lap race. It is the conclusion of regular season. It's the last opportunity for drivers to get more solid results on the board before we go to Croatia for the double points finale. The 2 worst scores on their 10-round season across our 5 destinations so far will be dropped at the end of this weekend. So, for instance, if they've DNF'd twice, those will be wiped from the record. It's interesting, an interesting little format. It's something that has been a part of motor racing in some capacity for a number of years, drop scoring, and it does make EuroNASCAR a very exciting proposition when we go to the season finale. Once we get to the finale with the double points on display, anything could happen. A lot of drivers, even drivers that have had a mediocre season, feel like they could, if the right circumstances fall in their favour, yet be a championship contender. You can't see the cars right now on the circuit. There are so many fans here in Belgium for the NASCAR Grand Prix of Belgium. It's a popular event year on year. We've been coming to Zolder since 2015, and circuit suits these cars well, and the audience growth over the years has been fabulous to see. Of course, all year long, we have these festival atmospheres that follow us around in the EuroNASCAR paddock, whether we're in the Czech Republic, whether we are in Spain, or of course in the UK at the American Speed Fest, which I know they're already well underway planning over at Brands Hatch for the 2023 season. It's a hallmark event in any calendar. It's a busy weekend, this, as well, for PK Car Sport. Not only are they running more cars than they do on an ordinary basis, they've got the 11 and the 24 out there on the circuit. They've also got cars in the Bell car category as well, so they're very busy this weekend in particular. It's a full hauler, but for now, back down to Andre with more interviews.
I'm here with Michael Blekemolen. Yes, right. Our oldest driver on the field, our experienced driver on the field. I think that's a better way to say it. How did you enjoy this race?
Nice, because I like Zolder. I drove 51 years ago my first race here with Formula V, and I won a lot of races over here. It's for me very special, and also today I was not really in a fight, but I make some places good, and I finished 12 altogether. Well, yeah, I'm happy.
All right, what are you expecting from the finals at Automotodrom Grobnik later in Croatia?
Croatia. Yeah. I think when everything goes well, then I finish normally 8, 9, but I had a bad year this year. Always a little problem, but yeah, I'm 73 now, and my sons, they told me you have to stop now, but I don't like to stop. I go away next year again with the whole season.
You will be back on EuroNASCAR next season, 100%.
For sure. I don't know what I have to do otherwise. That's my problem. But I'm also, and it's just 6 weekends, just as busy enough. But I have also my children from my children, and we go to karting. I'm busy every week somewhere in Europe.
So perfect. You heard it here first. Michael Blekemolen back in 2023. Dankjewel en tot ziens.
Dankjewel. You speak a little bit Dutch now.
Een beetje.
You have to learn here.
Dankjewel. Ciao.
That's excellent stuff. Well, there you go. Andre Viegold giving us the scoops down in pit lane. And great to hear from the elder statesman of the Blekemolen family. It's all well and good. The likes of Sebastian Roan telling him to stop racing. I'm sure when they're 73, they're still going to be going in some capacity as well, very much in the blood of the Blekemolen clan. And he is, of course, racing in EuroNASCAR too, the ex-Formula One driver, Michael Blekemolen. And great to have him. 51 years ago, he said he did his first race here. The circuit's only been open for 59 years. They celebrate their 60th anniversary of opening next year in 2023. It's 1963 this circuit was opened. The Zolder circuit has been around for a good long time and has always provided exciting racing in EuroNASCAR and far beyond that as well. Mark Goossens there on that front row of the grid has certainly had his lion's share of races on this circuit that we're getting a look at now. 11 turns per our map. We count the chicanes as one corner, and it is a just over 4 kilometre layout, just on 2.5 miles. Pretty quick in the first sector, sweeping mid-speed corners, and then you've got those bottleneck chicanes at 5 and 7 that can often make things a little bit tricky. The Jochen Rindbocht turn 9 is also a key place for potentially overtaking. Will we see any last gasp lunges in this race at the final chicane, turn 11? We'll have to wait and see. See there the bonnet, or rather the roof, I should say, of the 36 car. The 36 car is Vittorio Garelli, who got a pole position yesterday and finished second in the race. Garelli is on rich form this weekend. We haven't seen the best from him really all year. We know what we can expect from Vittorio Garelli, but he is starting third today. Another podium could definitely be in the offing for Vittorio Garelli. Garelli, who came up through junior single-seaters, as a lot of drivers do. He has been running with us in EuroNASCAR for a little while now. And not only motorsport, got their first pole position courtesy of that driver yesterday. 2020, he was our EuroNASCAR 2 champion. He was 5th in Pro last year. I think bettering that 5th place might be a roll of the dice this season, but we'll see how his championship prospects, or his championship forecast, looks after today's race. Only 18 minutes to get all of that humanity off of the pit lane. I'm sure those marshals or off of the circuit surface, I should say. I'm sure those marshals will be very busy in the not too distant future. The grid walk on the Sunday is always one of the most exciting parts of the weekend for the spectators in attendance. The drivers are there ready and willing to interact, to discuss, to sign autographs, and you can get up close and personal with those cars. I've seen people sitting in the cars a matter of minutes before races before, usually only if you're a small child, not an actual functioning adult. And to be fair, most adults would probably struggle to get through the window net here in these cars, of course, much like the NASCARs and the stock cars you'd see in America. These cars don't have a door. You have to climb through the window, and very much depends on your athletic prowess as to whether you look dignified or not. I can tell you I wouldn't fit, but even if I could, it wouldn't be dignified. 17 minutes away from the command, of course, being drivers, start your engines, some of the most famous words in motorsport. We'll be interested to see how the likes of Romain Iannetta do today. That car has been in the wars so far this weekend. Again, the 46 car seems to be perpetually in the midst of drama. He starts from 10th place on the grid today. So we've mentioned that Gianmarco Ercole is on pole position. I'll run you through some of the other grid spots at this point. Mark Goossens is our second place on the grid. As we have mentioned, the highly experienced racer who knows his way around this circuit like practically no other. Vittorio Garelli is third on the grid. Anthony Kumpen alongside him. Kumpen and Goossens running line astern into turn one. That's a Belcar or FIA GT race mirrored 50 times over. Giorgio Maggi in the junior class, he is fifth. In sixth place, Patrick Lemarie. Sebastian Blekemolen is seventh on the grid, alongside that youngster Liam Hasemans, who took another win earlier on in EuroNASCAR 2 this morning. Alexander Graf, the closest championship contender as it stands to Alain Day, in 9th. Romain Iannetta in P10. Frederic Gabillon in 11th place. Nicolo Rocca in P12. Alain Day all the way down in 13th place. He's going to have some work to do. Of course, if you get the most overtakes, if you make the most passes of anybody, you do get bonus points. Alain Day is going to have to work hard to get those bonus points. He's going to have to hope that no one charges from further back. Martin Dubek, 14th on the grid. Paul van Pollard in 15th. Fabrizio Armetta is 16th, joining him on row 8. Row 9, the 23 car of Henri Tuamala and Claudio Remigio Capelli rounding out the first 18 cars on the grid. Capelli got a podium, his first podium in EuroNASCAR 2 this weekend, and he will be looking to have a good performance as well within the pro category. Interestingly, he splits his fortunes across two cars. He runs the 18 car, driven by Giorgio Maggi in this race within EuroNASCAR 2, and he runs the 16 car in the EuroNASCAR Pro. We just saw there the 27 car being towed in, but I don't think that car is meant to be racing in this one, unless I'm going blind. Certainly I'm not seeing it on the grid sheet, so I think that car might be being collected from previous racing. In fact, no, it was meant to be Stefano Attianesi in that car, but he wasn't on the grid sheet, and unfortunately he's being towed into the pit lane. That makes me think that perhaps the car was meant to take the start after all, and is now, well, not. So that's a big shame for him. And an interesting point here from our colleague Reza, one of the diligent media team here, also the man behind the World of EuroNASCAR website. If Frederic Gabillon starts the race, it'll be his 100th race in EuroNASCAR. That is a great statistic from Reza, who we thank for his hard work. He is working remotely from quite literally half a world away, and his work is always second to none. So the pits are starting to flood with people, and that means that the circuit is starting to be vacated as we get towards the sharp end of this weekend's action. It will be an 18-lap race for the EuroNASCAR Pro category, 75 kilometers, and is going to be hopefully a race with minimal drama. We've had our fair share of spare parts used so far this weekend, and while the smash and bash and fender rubbing is very much part of stock car racing, I think a few teams will be hoping to have to do a few less repairs when they get back to home base and get back into work on Monday morning. So it's not just EuroNASCAR Pro drivers down there as well. Quite a few of the EuroNASCAR 2 drivers will also join them on the grid walk and also sign. I know that Alberto Nasca's signature is a hot topic and a valued item among our fans this year. And of course, NASCAR, with a huge following in the YouTube community, he is racing in EuroNASCAR 2. He's currently leading the championship over Liam Hasemans, but not by much heading into the season finale. Of course, the drop scores and so on. We'll have 2 drop scores after today's race. That does add some complication to the standings proceedings. We will bring you as much information as we can post this race. However, the official standings will be available in short order on the EuroNASCAR.com website. Of course, who knows? Results are provisional until the stewards have taken a very close look at everything that happens. You see a few of the drivers standing to attention by their cars. You can see Alexander Graf just above our NASCAR Whelen Euro Series logo there. He is looking fairly relaxed. You can see Alan Day as well, a couple of rows back. I think he will be conscious that this weekend this race could make or break his championship lead. He'd love to have the championship lead going into the final weekend in Croatia, but it doesn't seem that he and the Speedhouse car are quite gelling as they should this weekend. He will be back in the PK Car Sport 24 next time out in Grobnik. Anthony Kumpen's return, at least for this year, is a one-off. But we'll have to see how he readapts to that. Great to have Kumpen back with us. As we were talking about a little earlier on, it's a very busy day for PK Car Sport in general. They've got their 2 cars in this race. They've got another 2 cars in the Belcar Endurance race that goes out on circuit immediately after this as well. So PK Car Sport are very busy. Of course, we've got some teams running a multitude of cars in this race as well. Spare a thought for Cal Racing. They are running 3 cars. For example, and Marco Stitt Motorsport run 2. A good number of teams run more than that. Speedhouse, I believe, is the most populous team out there on circuit with 4 cars. So definitely some busy teams here in EuroNASCAR. It is a popular place to be. A lot of the drivers I know in the national racing scene over in the UK are very eager to move up to EuroNASCAR. We usually see a couple of guest starters from the UK at the American Speedfest at Brands Hatch, just taking a look and seeing if their budget can extend to a full season. It is quite cost-effective international motorsport, the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. Entry fees are certainly not as high as championships with equivalent exposure and performance. And that does mean that we get some hugely talented drivers who would otherwise perhaps be left in the cold a little bit. Mark Hewson's getting a significant embrace there. If I'm not mistaken, I think we might have the anthem playing. So the Belgian and American national anthems back to back as we approach the final few minutes of the pre-race. So 6 minutes until we get the commands, and you see there that the grid has now firmly emptied out, and Vittorio Girelli just wedging himself into the car as we approach the final minutes before this race begins. Yesterday, it was a commanding result for Gianmarco Ercoli at the sharp end of the order. Vittorio Girelli followed him home in second place. I know Girelli would be super keen to get a win on the board in this 2022 season. We'll see if he can do that today. But for Gianmarco Ercoli, this weekend represents an opportunity to try and rebuild his title campaign, really. It was in disarray after Vallelunga. You may remember at Vallelunga he drove over a stray body part between turns 1 and 2, a piece of metal off of one of the cars, and that ended his race. At Brands Hatch he had a collision with Alan Day that ripped the rear of the car apart, and that ultimately ended his race. He ended up attached to one of the other cars. I believe it was Thomas Chrysonis, if memory serves me correctly, but it has been a difficult year for Gianmarco Ercoli. Yesterday, though, marked a turning point in his season so far. I'd suggest he has, of course, had success already this year. It really felt like his form and his confidence had built immediately post the Saturday race, round 9 of the season. If he can get another promising result, another podium in round 10, then he could indeed be a championship contender, a significant championship contender in the final weekend of the year. I remind you, it is double points in Croatia, so the regular 40 points for a win will become 80. So it really is up in the air when we go to the season decider in Grobnik. A little less than 4 minutes before we get the commands. Mark Goossens has had scarce opportunities this year to show exactly what he is capable of. Those of you who follow GT racing are well aware of what he has done in the past in the GT sphere, particularly here in his kind of back garden almost of Zolder. Pretty sure he's raced here more than anywhere else. He was the winner of the Formula Ford Festival in the UK back in 1991. Made it as far as Formula 3000 in junior single-seaters. Serial championship winner in Belcar. JGTC winner, Japanese GT championship race winner. Before that was called Super GT. Even did the NASCAR Cup Series at times on the road courses in the mid-2000s, and scored a top 10 in the NASCAR Busch Series race at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico, the home of the Mexican Grand Prix today. That was back in 2006. Was a Dodge factory driver as well when they took the Viper to Le Mans in the early 2010s. His best result in EuroNASCAR across the championship is a 5th place in 2020. He placed 5th in the championship in 2020. He has taken a race win here in EuroNASCAR. He would love to add to that today at a circuit like Zolder, where he has seen so much success. Starting there on the front row alongside Gianmarco Ercoli surely represents one of his best opportunities all season long. He had a good opportunity to get a good result at Valencia, but his engine burst, but it certainly popped on him, and unfortunately he was not able to see the flag in race 2, I believe it was, in Valencia. Less than 2 minutes until the command is given to fire up the engines. With eager anticipation for the main event of this weekend. The ones to watch beyond the front, I would say, are definitely our championship top 2. Both Alexander Graf and Alan Day are uncharacteristically placed on this grid. particularly in the case of Alan Day. It's not often we see him outside the top 10 on a race 2 grid, but he is 13th on the grid in that 40 car. Alexander Graf in the 64 in P9. Nicola Rocca is also one to watch as well. He is starting 12th on the grid today. Certainly a few drivers, I think, will be working their way through the order and could make things compelling when we go racing in just a moment. Of course, it is a rolling start in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, as you would well imagine. It was also a 2x2 rolling start on our first restart. If there is a safety car, usually it's at the discretion of the stewards, but usually the more safety cars we get, the more likely we are to move to single file starts in an effort to maybe calm everyone down just a smidge. And certainly some of the races this weekend have been less than that. Just about to hear the command to start engines. We'll pause, because I believe that is coming in just a second. There we go. The command is given and the engines are fired. 400 brake horsepower times about 30. Means we have well in excess, coming up on 12,000 brake horsepower available to these drivers on the grid here. It's a very exciting discipline of motorsport, the EuroNASCAR category. The cars are quick in a straight line. At 1,200 kilos, they're fairly light on their feet, but they can still be a bit unruly in the corners given they have limited downforce. It's a challenge unlike any other in European motorsport. It's also proven to be a good training ground for drivers who want to make an attempt in the US NASCAR scene. We have seen the likes of Alan Day and, of course, our champion from last year, Loris Hasemans, taking to America after a spell in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. Very much a part of the ladder. Here's the grid then. It is Gianmarco Ercoli in the 54 car for Cal Racing on the front row of the grid alongside Speedhouse's Mark Goosens. Can he take his first win with that team this weekend? Not only Motorsports, Vittorio Garelli on third on the grid, and PK Carsports, Anthony Kumpen on his return. He gets to take the start from the second row of the grid this time. He had to start from the pits yesterday. Giorgio Maggi in fifth alongside Patrick Lemarie in P6. Fourth row of the grid, Sebastian Blekemolen, and he is joined in P8 by Liam Hasemans. Liam Hasemans, the youngster in his first season of car racing, has been a force to be reckoned with in EuroNASCAR 2. Alexander Graf, second in the championship. He starts from P9 alongside Roman Iannetta. That is your top 10. Of course, as has just been reminded to me by Andre down in the pits, he's gone, don't forget that Loris is racing tonight. Yeah, goodness me, we already are at the point of the Charlotte Roval, aren't we? That felt like it should be weeks away, but we are well into the chase for the Cup over in the US in the NASCAR Cup Series, and the Charlotte Roval is this evening. So if you enjoy this race, you fancy a bit more road course competition in stock cars, seek out the Charlotte Roval later on today. Always makes for a classic race in a NASCAR Cup Series season. Focusing though, and of course if you do watch that race, cheer on Loris, last year's champion here in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, racing for Team Hazeberg there. Focusing though on this race at Zolder, as we've noted, it is really do or die for a lot of these drivers here. A good result here will mean they can drop maybe some stronger positions in the points table, be better placed in the championship after this weekend, with the two drop scores taken into account. I know that for Gianmarco Ercoli, it really was a weekend where he needed to either perform or wait until next year and thus far he has performed. He will be starting on the front row of the grid alongside Mark Goossens. Goossens will of course have the outside line into the first corner. We saw that work against Vittorio Garelli in yesterday's race, having the inside line into turn 1, but that was because the circuit was still slightly damp after overnight rain showers. However, that is not a problem at this stage. It's been a glorious weekend, it must be said, here at Zolder, and it has been a glorious weekend so far for Gianmarco Ercole. We're about to find out whether that will continue. He is just a couple of corners away from taking the start of this race. Once the Tesla peels off the circuit, all of the cars before you will be powered by V8 Thunder. The big 5.7 litre V8 motors power all of the cars on this grid. It makes for a stunning noise as the cars start to build their pace and head towards the lights, which will go out momentarily for Gianmarco Ercole and the chasing pack. They're underway, and it is Ercole to the inside. Mark Goossens, though, with a nose almost ahead into the braking zone. Has Ercole got the car stopped? Yes, he has. Later on the brakes, and he takes the lead. Mark Goossens there in second place. Then it's Garelli. Then it's Kumper in fourth place. Giorgio Maggi in fifth. It looked like Patrick Lemery was just about holding on to sixth place as everyone jostles for track space, 2 and 3 wide through turns 2 and 3 on that lap. The first lap, of course, always a source for drama in these first few corners. We tend to see the dust getting kicked up in the back of shot, as we did there. Here is Gianmarco Ercole then. He's leading from Mark Goossens. Goossens yesterday was telling us you've got to attack these curves here at the first chicane, turn 5, and also at turn 7, the Villeneuve chicane. And I'm sure he did so. You can tell he did, because he's still all over the back of Gianmarco Ercole. Vittorio Garelli there in third place. He's a car length or 2 back from the top 2. Alan Day hasn't made that much progress. We just saw the 40 car through shot there. I'm not convinced necessarily that he's made any progress on this first lap so far from his 14th place starting position. Dubek and Alan Day were still running line astern in the pack. I think he might be in 13th place, or at least he was as of halfway around the lap. We'll see where he is by the end of lap number 1 as they cross the timing beams for the first time. There's no question over our leader, though. It is Gianmarco Ercole with Mark Goossens in his shadow. Anthony Kumpen looking to the inside here of Vittorio Garelli. Can he make that move stick? He was going for it for third place. Does he have it? Yes! Anthony Kumpen up into third place then on his return. He's no less audacious than he was in previous years, is he? Alan Day up to 13th as I expected. So that is where he is at the moment. He needs to make some forward momentum, and he needs to start doing it quickly. Alexander Graf has made up places. He's up to 7th place on this first lap for Speedhouse. So this driver of the 64 car in good stead right now. Across the curves they go for the second time. You know there that there is a knack to going through that corner properly without collecting those tyres, but while still carrying some speed. It's a dark art. And just to say as well that the 56 team, the Cal Racing crew, car number 56, they really have put in a fabulous effort to even be in this race. Nicola Rocca and the team had to replace a lot of parts around the engine in less than an hour, supervised by our officials, in order to even take the start of this one. So Nicola Rocca, I think any points, any decent finish would be a bonus for him and a bonus for the team, given the day they have had so far after Gil Linster didn't seem to have the best of runs in the car earlier on. Ercole and Goossens then running line astern. Just to circle back to that 56 car, it was brought back on a flatbed actually at the end of EN2, so Gil Linster didn't even make it to the finish. Clearly engine issues for that car, but it seems, based on current pace, It has been rectified, at least for now. I think I saw Alan Day trying to make a move there. In fact, he was just ahead of Martin Dubeck still. He's still there in 13th place in car number 40, so no forward progression at all from Alan Day in the early stages. Pick up of the dust further back, I think that could have been Frederic Gabillon, who has taken his 100th start in EuroNASCAR, as we see him there on the circuit. Gabillon, certainly a highly experienced driver and one who loves the EuroNASCAR discipline for sure. He has been here for a long time and a good time, and we love to see him in this paddock. So they head through the Villeneuve chicane for the third time of asking. And you see there Alan Day just behind Nicolas Roca at the moment, 12th and 13th place. Must say Anthony Kumpen, he is setting a stunning pace out there right now. He's on what looks to be a fastest lap of the race potentially, depending on how the final sector goes. Got yellow flags down at turn 8, turn 9, but that is down at the Jochen Rindt box. Not sure, but it looks like that's been cleared. Okay, so whatever it was only minimal. There you see the 46 car just behind Liam Hasemans. That is Roman Iannetta. That car wearing its battle scars. It's got white panels that have been signed by fans. And Martin Dubeck, he gave a sign to Alan Day that he was going to try and go up the inside, and that's exactly what he's done. But Alan Day tries to fight back. He's not able to do so. So Alan Day is actually falling back through the order. This is disastrous for Alan Day. He did the deal last minute to move into Speedhouse on a one-off basis so he could be here at Zolder after PK Car Sports' initial deal with him was good for 5 races. Now he's losing positions, which is the absolute opposite of what he would want. There you see the 11 car of Paul van Pollard, and that is the car that normally, in those colours, you'd see it in the hands of Alan Day. Of course, he would run the 24 in normal circumstances. There is Alan Day in the 40, and he is not going to be impressed seeing people pass him. Not conventional for Alan Day. Of course, these cars, despite the different decals and body shapes, are all but identical mechanically. But of course, different teams set up the cars in different ways, and different drivers want the car set up in different ways. Potentially, the setup and the team and driver not quite in unison right now, and that is why Alan Day is struggling uncharacteristically here at Zolder. Given he pulled together the deal last minute, I'm sure he was hoping for better fortunes than he's having. Sadly, that doesn't seem to be the case. Alexander Graf under some pressure there from Patrick Lemarie. Graf has managed to get past on that previous lap, actually. He is up into 7th place, I thought. Yes, he has got past Patrick Lemarie, who's also been overtaken by Sebastian Blekemolen. Getting the feeling that Lemarie might be starting to lose a little bit of pace here in the number 5 car, which didn't take the start this morning. Vladimir Siotis unable to drive. So hopefully that car is okay. Alan Day looks to the inside of Martin Dubeck speculatively. No move made just yet. Alan Day, rather than surging up through the order as perhaps we all anticipated, is instead fighting with last year's EuroNASCAR 2 champion Martin Dubeck. Of course, Alan Day, one of the most decorated drivers in EuroNASCAR history. Driver who has been over to the US and raced in NASCAR Xfinity Series. He was also an Asian Formula Renault champion, a GT race winner, so fast. A 3-time champion in EuroNASCAR, and he thought to himself coming into this season that he should be the hot favourite, with Loris Hasemans focusing on America. And, well, in many respects he has been the favourite, but this weekend is proving to be a misnomer for the driver in unfamiliar seat. No significant changes in the order aside from Graf and Lemery on this lap. As we noted, Alexander Graf did get past Patrick Lemery. That is for 7th place. Sebastian Bleekemolen up in 6th place. He'd like a top 5 finish out of this one. I remember Sebastian Jeroen Bleekemolen having a good result here back in the day in FIA GTs, sharing a Viper with the car sport team of all people, who of course are here this weekend. It is Coley and Goossens, our top 2, as we approach 1/3 distance in this race. Incident between cars 11 and 74 under investigation. The 11 car, Hol van Pollard. 74 is Kenko Miura. So that is interesting between the two of them. They have had a drama somewhere out on circuit. Kenko Miura, of course, the Japanese racer who is making his return to EuroNASCAR this weekend after a couple of years of forced absence with the difficulty of travel in 2020 and 2021. Kumpen has been holding on to the back of those two at the sharp end of the order. Vittorio Garelli, who we see here in 4th place, has been staving off the threat of Giorgio Maggi for several laps now. Just wonder whether Maggi has the pace to match Kumpen, or perhaps even catch him for a challenge on the podium. But right now, Vittorio Garelli is proving to be the cork in the bottle. Garelli, who was so happy to get pole position yesterday, pretty happy with his podium as well. Still a strong result if he takes 4th place today, but I think he's probably a bit disappointed that he's not quite able to match the pace, and he's a little bit too busy having to try and get past Giorgio Maggi. The gap between Coley and Goossens last time across the line was half a second. I think that's basically what it's been for the last several laps. Whereas Anthony Kumpen, how's his pace matching up to those two? Well, it's about on par. If anything, it's a couple of tenths slower. So Kumpen perhaps not due a victory here on home turf, as much as he would love a winning return to the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. I'm not sure he's quite got the pace right now, but the race is young and these tyres are not. The tyres are kind of used across the Saturday and the Sunday. These Hoosier tyres are put through the ringer across the Saturday and the Sunday. This again is, among other things, to keep costs down and so on. So these tyres are anything but right. Anthony Kumpen didn't do that many laps yesterday, given he had issues with the car. So I'm just wondering if maybe his rubber might be a bit fresher than Coley and Goossens by the end of the race. Got some good information coming through here from our intrepid pit reporter Andre Viegold. He's also a man who likes to spreadsheets. And Alan Day at the moment 277 points if the race were to finish now for Alan Day. But Alan Day has gone missing. Alan Day hasn't crossed the line, or has he? Yes, he has, but he's crossed the line in 25th place. So Alan Day has gone missing there. I didn't spot that while I was looking at some of the information I'm being provided with here. So I don't know if anyone saw that on camera. If they did, I apologise that I wasn't looking at the feed at that time. But Alan Day, with a 2:02 on his last lap, he did cross the line. He's not in the pits, but he's down in 25th place. And that is huge for the championship. I was about to say that Alan Day would still leave this weekend as championship leader if things were to finish as they are, but that is no longer the case per my reckoning. Of course, Day would stay at 277 points because of the drop scores, so I forget myself there for a moment, but we see Alan Day all the way down in 25th position. How damaging will this be to his confidence going into the finale, that this weekend just hasn't gone as planned in any capacity? Meanwhile, Patrick Lemarie is proving to be a little bit of an obstacle for the likes of Hazemans and also, I believe that is Graf, isn't it, in the Speedhouse car. So Graf and Lemarie seem to be perpetually at war with each other here, which again isn't good for Alexander Graf because he really needs to be moving up the order. Instead, he's fallen back there. He's lost 3 or 4 places. I think he may have been run out of road somewhat. Liam Hazemans, straight lining the chicane there, asked a bit too much on turn-in, and he does continue on. Glad he missed that tyre barrier. He's now under pressure from Romain Iannetta, a driver with plentiful experience, not just in EuroNASCAR. You may remember him for the Le Mans 24 Hours and such as well. French GT2, if memory serves me correctly. He's a driver who has had lots of seat time over the years in these EuroNASCAR machines. Liam Hazemans, conversely, has only ever competed in 1 season of car racing. That is the season we're witnessing right now. Liam Hazemans has had a fabulous year. He goes into the season finale in EuroNASCAR 2 at Grobnik as the distinct highest challenger to Alberto Nasca, which would be very compelling in the season finale. Turn 12 is covered by yellow flags. Alan Day has come into the pit lane. There were yellow flags out of turn 12. I didn't spot necessarily why. Turn 12 on the timing screen, I think, is different from turn 12 on the map we saw pre-race. I'm not quite sure where that was on the circuit, but I can tell you that Nicola Roca and Henri Tuamala have both gone missing on this lap. So Tuamala and Nicola Roca may have had a coming together. Roca has just crossed the line in 20 seconds. Alexander Graf. Alexander Graf was involved too. Alexander Graf has dropped down to 23rd and he is in the pits. Okay, so a lot has happened here in the mid-pack somewhere, and Alexander Graf is also dropping down the order. Alexander Graf, who was hoping here, especially with Alan Day already withdrawn in the pit lane, he was hoping to get an opportunity here to gain some good points over Alan Day, and that's not going to happen. The 11 car is embedded in the gravel. That's Paul van Pollard. He's in the gravel. That's at turn 1, I believe. So a lot has gone on there. Now, are those two incidents connected? Alexander Graf is in there. Tyre is being changed at the moment. Alexander Graf is clearly in the wars and already over a lap down. Yellow flags at turn 1. We haven't seen the safety car thrown out yet. We've already had the field pass the danger zone already, so I'm suspecting now the safety car comes out. Okay, so the safety car is in fact joining us on the circuit. So a lot has happened there all at once. I can tell you that Gianmarco Ercoli is still our race leader. Mark Goosens is second and Anthony Kumpen still there in third. We're running through the order. Vittorio Gorelli in 4th place. Sebastian Blakemolen in 5th. In 6th, it's Giorgio Maggi. So Blakemolen has managed to pick his way past Giorgio. Patrick Lemarie in 7th. Liam Hazemans 8th. Romain Iannetta in 9th place. And Frederic Gabillon in 10th place. Martin Dubek in 11th. Fabrizio Armetta is there in 12th place, and Kenko Miura is 13th. Armetta currently leading the Challenger Trophy class ahead of Miura, and Massimilio Lanza is behind them. Some damage there on Henri Tuamala's car and Claudio Remigio Capelli. I think that's probably the case up and down the grid at this stage of the race. Critically, though, Nicola Roca down in 20th place. Both Alexander Graf and Alan Day in 25th and 26th and 27th, respectively, on the timing screen. Any consolation I can find for anyone? Well, at least Alexander Graf has got back out on the circuit now. He is running again in 26, albeit a couple of laps off the leaders. But that is a limited consolation at best. So from what I can tell, the 11 cars incident, given it's at turn 1, not connected to anything that happened with Alexander Graf, but a lot has changed here in the potential championship projection. It is still going to be Alan Day, come what may, scoring 277 points after the 2 worst results are deducted from his championship score with the drop scores in play. Second place would be Gianmarco Ercoli if things were to end as they are right now. He would get 271 points coming out of this weekend. Ercoli is performing a mighty salvage job right now to get to that point of being second in the championship on 271. He still has to finish this race, so let's not count our chickens before they hatch, but he's certainly in a strong position. Alexander Graf on 269 would be in third. 263 points for Giorgio Maggi. He would be fourth in the championship. Martin Dubek would be down to 6th behind Nicola Rocca. But certainly it looks like we are gearing up almost for a 4-way battle potentially in the season finale. You know, it'll be a bit more encompassing than that even, given how many points we score in the double points finale. But 277 points for Day, 271 for Ercoli, 269 for Graf, and 263 for Giorgio Maggi. That's 4 cars covered by 14 points potentially, heading into a weekend where 160 more than 160, 107, 180 would be available. I believe we do double points on the most overtakes as well, so a lot would be to play for in Croatia. The championship could go many, many directions by the end of Sunday in Croatia if things were to finish as they are. I think come what may, no matter what happens in the final 5 laps of this race as we go on to lap 13 of 18, the season finale in Croatia is going to be a spectacle second to none. Alan Day would sorely love to claim his 4th championship in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, but he's going to have to work hard to defeat a surging Gianmarco Ercoli. As it stands, is on for a clean sweep of this weekend. And there, I believe I'm seeing Alexander Graf unlapping himself. Alexander Graf getting a wave by. That won't put him onto the lead lap, I believe. Actually, looking at it, no, I think it would. If he's being waved around past the safety car, I think that puts him back onto the lead lap. Interesting. So Graf, in theory, will now pass the Mini. However, in reality, he's staying firmly behind the safety car and ahead of Gianmarco Ercoli. Now he finally goes by. So there is the 64 car. There is Alexander Graf. This puts him back onto the lead lap of the race. And that means that he could climb through the order and still gain some points over Alan Day if he can close in to the rear of the field. He can close into the rear of the field before the safety car comes in. He will be in prime position to maybe pick away at a few places, gain a few critical points versus the 277 point score of Alan Day going into our last couple of events. Last 2 rounds, both held on the 29th and 30th of October at Grobnik in Croatia. So Gianmarco Ercoli, I'm sure as a racer, he will be keen to get the race back underway. But of course, every lap that he's trundling around behind the safety car is a lap where he doesn't have to defend for his race lead. So I'm sure mixed emotions in that cockpit. I don't think we're going racing this time. The lights are still flashing atop the Mini, and sure enough, it goes into the final chicane as opposed to peeling off into the pits. '64 car should then get the opportunity to catch up, but Alexander Graf is certainly driving out of his skin right now to close in on this pack. Of course, him doing that may also give him some slightly warmer Hoosier tyres compared to everyone else. So while he's hardly going to be a contender for a high position in this race, some slightly higher tyre temps might do him some favours, maybe trying to break back into the top 20. He currently sits 25th with 5 to go. It's interesting how these cars seem to perpetually be set up loose. You see that they're always very sideways and squirrely on the circuit, and that can mean that the racing is very exciting, particularly on the first lap when they're 2x2 on a formation rolling start. A 2x2 formation rolling start, incidentally, is exactly what we are about to do on this lap. The safety car is coming in, and we're going to do a 2x2 rolling start, double file restart. And Alexander Graf will be a part of that restart by the looks of it. He's very close to the back of the pack, and Alexander Graf has a golden opportunity here to pick his way through the order and potentially score some much needed points. I see that Paul van Pollard has also rejoined the race. He will be ahead in the queue there of Alexander Graf. Of course, he was the driver embedded in the gravel. So when we cross the line, it will be 4 laps to go. 4 laps of racing for these drivers to decide the fate of round 10 of the NASCAR GP Belgium, and in many ways potentially deciding who has the momentum going into our season finale in Grobnik, Croatia. Alan Day has had an uncharacteristic season in that it hasn't been all the way perfect. Certainly in the early stages of the year, his pace looks second to no man, but it does seem that the chinks in the armour have developed across the season. And here on this one-off performance with Speedhouse, the car just hasn't been right for him, and he remains in pit lane. It doesn't look like he will be taking the checkered flag. A weekend to forget for Alan Day. Could that play into the hands of everyone else as they roll towards the final chicane in 2x2 formation for this rolling start? It will be Gianmarco Ercoli on the inside on the front row. Mark Goosen still there in second place, still hugely keen on potentially challenging for a win here on his familiar turf of Zolder. Out of the final corner they go. The green flag has been declared. We are back to racing, and the 2x2 rolling start is go. It's a good start from Ercoli. Kumpun got a better run than Goosen's, and he launches it up the inside for second place, and he gets to second place. Oh, but Goosen's around in the pack. All sorts of cars scattering. Liam Hasemans and Vittorio Garelli both through the gravel trap there. Roman Inetta off track and rejoining, and then going onto the grass potentially to retire, but cars all over the show at turn 1. Henri Tuamala in the 23 car pulling up as well, but that was nasty for Mark Goosen, and he was tagged by, I believe it was Pirelli potentially. A huge shame nonetheless, and a lot of cars are now running in very, very damaged condition. Giorgio Maggi was involved in that as well. Giorgio Maggi is well down the order. Not sure exactly if he's still running, but we'll see in due course. He was running in 6th place. He's definitely not there anymore. There's Leonardo Colavita running with a bit of damage, as I'm sure many will be now. We're under full course yellow conditions, and there you see Lemarie and Dubek, who were involved in that. They were much further in the pack, outside the top 10. There's Vittorio Garelli. That car is missing a great many parts, and I feel for not only motorsport there, because they've been having one of their best weekends of the season up to this point, and that car, unfortunately, is going to run back into the truck in suboptimal condition. And the good news is that Mark Goosen's car wasn't collected too harshly in that incident. You never like to see someone pirouetting in the middle of the field, but unfortunately the Speedhouse car is not going to be taking any further part in this race, I don't think. Certainly not at the sharp end. There's Hazeman's car being pushed out of the gravel. I believe I saw Roman Iannetta potentially into the pits. No, it's Riccardo Romagnoli out of the race and into the pits, but this has really jumbled up the order, I can tell you that much. Gianmarco Ercoli is still our race leader. Anthony Kumpen, with that move on Goosen's, is up in 2nd place. You see there Giorgio Maggi's car is also being collected, so we knew the car was involved. We didn't know if it was still running, but it is still parked down there at turn 1. And Goosen's got tagged by Garelli. I think Goosen's tried to turn in, having missed the apex because Anthony Kumpen was on his inside. And from there, really, a great many drivers had no space, no room, and could only helplessly enter the carnage. So it's Curly from Kumpen at the sharp end of the order. Then it's Sebastian Blakemolen. Fabrizio Armetta is up into 4th place ahead of Kenko Miura. So the two challenger leaders in 4th and 5th place overall, which is a huge coup for both of them. 6th place, Johnny Rautjärvi. Claudio Remeggio Capelli in 7th place. If I'm not mistaken, I think that would be his best finish in EuroNASCAR Pro on the same day where he scored his first podium in EuroNASCAR Pro. That would be huge. In EuroNASCAR 2, I should say, he got his first podium earlier today. That would be huge for Claudio Remeggio Capelli. Remo Lips is in 8th place on his return. Leonardo Colavita in 9th position. Unfortunately, I'm not getting pictures at the moment here in my commentary box, whether or not I'm still